Political earthquake, really unlike anything we've seen. You'd have to go back almost 70 years now
Not in our lifetime.
Supreme Court decision that changes politics in the way. Politico reporting tonight that the Supreme Court is preparing to overturn Roe v. Wade and abortion rights. The hotly contested GOP Senate primary in Ohio is just hours away. Polls open there. Bill Cunningham, longtime political watcher in Ohio, lawyer, host of the Bill Cunningham Show on 700 WLW in Cincinnati, Ohio. Bill, you always got to look forward into the politics. Does this change anything in the Republican primary tomorrow?
You know, what it may do is cause more people to come out to vote, because on the Republican primary, the true believers vote, and probably 95% or more of Ohioan primary voters, whether you're for Vance or Mandel or Timken or whoever you're for, you're already believing Roe versus Wade should have been overturned. And so I don't think it changes much tomorrow. What's maybe more important tomorrow in politics is that Ohio is going to have a lot of storms. And when there's a lot of rain in the area, really the true believers come out. So this is going to energize, I heard Marnie before, both sides on the issue. Because for those who are protesting tonight on the U.S. Supreme Court, and I see your great coverage, they have a particular viewpoint. And of course, those voting, whether it's in Georgia in 3 weeks, those voting in Ohio tomorrow, already believe that Roe versus Wade should have been overturned anyway. So in essence, I think politically in the short term, which is the next week or two in Republican primaries, not much change.
Bill, everybody is having a reaction of their own tonight to the potential news of overturning Roe v. Wade and the ramifications that would have, as you said. A moment ago, you shared that you had lunch with the late Antonin Scalia a number of years ago. Your reaction tonight and what he shared with you on the legitimacy and the fragility of the Supreme Court and their role?
Well, number one, it's almost like an insurrection on the Supreme Court by, I would assume, a law clerk who wanted to make a statement like a whistleblower, and he or she's going to be lionized, I think, going forward. But going back to my brief lunch with Antonin Scalia, we both were commencement speakers at an event at the law school in Toledo, and we sat down, had a little bit of wine, a little pasta, great guy. And we didn't talk specifically about Roe versus Wade, although his comments applied, which was, don't come to the courts for us to enshrine in the Constitution certain societal or legislative rights. Go out to convince your fellow citizens. Go to California, go to Illinois, go to Florida, and convince your fellow citizens as to whether abortion or gun rights, these so-called social hot-button issues, should be law or should not be law. It's not up to us to put things in the Constitution that clearly is not there because it's a good idea or not. And then he got into debates with the other Supreme Court justices, and of course, he had a viewpoint similar to my own, but his viewpoint was if it's not in the body of the Constitution, he was a textualist. He said, go convince the state legislators as to what the law should be. So tonight, Antonin Scalia, looking down from heaven above, is a happy former Supreme Court justice right now in the hands of God Almighty, and I think both are quite happy with this purported decision. As you said, Marnie, that this draft is 3 months old almost. It may have changed repeatedly. I doubt it, but nonetheless, to many of us who feel as I feel, this is a great day to be an American.
Bill, if you think about this draft, and I'm neither a lawyer nor do I try to play one on television, but having covered the issue for a while, it is almost verbatim what would be the textbook opinion that a conservative law student would write when assigned to write a draft to overturn Roe v. Wade. I'm interested in it. You think you could delve deeper in this. Explicitly criticizes Lawrence v. Texas. That ended the ban on gay sex. And also Obergefell versus Hodges legalized same-sex marriage, saying those aren't deeply rooted in history as well. This would be the question. You said, you made a good point about whoever leaked this is going to be lionized as some great hero of the left and who brought about this conversation before the Supreme Court would rule, on and on and on. Are we at the point now where the last great institution in America, from a constitutional standpoint, now its integrity is really called into a question in a way that it never had been before?
Absolutely. In my view, the Supreme Court, despite low approval ratings in the 50s compared to the Congress and the presidency, is really high. And so many Americans turn to the Supreme Court to resolve disputes in the states that should be decided politically. Many conservatives believe that it comes down to two words. The two words are, who decides? Do we decide on the Supreme Court, or do you decide through democracy? Many liberal outlets have said for a long time, democracy is at risk. Democracy is dying. Well, now's the chance. This is democracy. Go to the state of Illinois, go to Ohio, go to Florida, go to California, and convince your fellow citizens and legislators
Bill,
as to why abortion should be legal or illegal.
We saw 2016, Tim Alberta's great book. We saw how incredibly motivating the Supreme Court and justices in general were to voters. Republicans, in large part, that's one of the reasons, the only reasons they voted for Donald Trump was who he said he was going to appoint to the Supreme Court. We know that. We know that's one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, that he was able to pull out the victory in 2016. Should Democrats be careful about the Pandora's box they're opening? Because I know a lot of moderate Republican women who have become more conservative in their years, but are going to turn around and start marching again and start helping pro-choice candidates.
The problem might be that it's easier to defend than to assault. And right now, conservatives have been wanting to change the law. We're filled with passion. If the law now is up to the states, I think the more passion may be on the left side of the political spectrum to go there in order to change the state legislators. Or I'm seeing tonight, about a half an hour ago, Senator Bernie Sanders now wants to get rid of the filibuster and pass a national law which allows abortion. And so now the passion is more on, shall I say, the left than on the right. And be careful for what you wish. Now that so-called we have won, in a sense, and I think an unborn baby is a baby and not medical waste. I think it is a baby. Now the argument's going to be in the state legislators. It's going to be in the capitals of the states. And there's more passion, I think you see it tonight, on the left than on the right. And so really, this may affect a little bit some of the wishy moderate states, but I don't see Ohio suddenly becoming Democratic or Kentucky becoming Democratic. I don't see Florida, Texas becoming Democratic. But some other states like Colorado, Governor Paulus, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, signed a very accepting law on abortion. There's going to be abortion tourism. There's going to be about 25 states with it and 25 states without it. And so the states with it are going to encourage women, and women do have babies, to come to their state, kind of like abortion tourism, much like Colorado for a while was a place to go to smoke pot. And so right now, the passion is on the left. But be careful by November. If the war heats up, if inflation is 15%, if you can't buy baby formula, the great majority of us, shall we say, don't have babies. There's about, I don't know, under 1% of women every year have a child. And I think younger women are more motivated to vote. But this time, they tend to vote Democrat anyway. And so the average voter in America is about 38 years old.
All right, Bill. Well, your race in Ohio, this primary tomorrow, just got a lot more interesting and a lot more important. The front runner, J.D. Vance, of course, Trump endorsed Matt Dolan as well. We'll be watching that closer than we were going to already. Bill Cunningham, radio host on 700 WLW in Cincinnati. Bill, we appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you, Marnie. You're a great American. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll take that.
You didn't say anything about me, all right? Live outside the Supreme Court, you've got sort of these protesters going on. Hard to know who's on which side. You can see this group, atheist against abortion. Okay, great. But what I think, Marnie, we're seeing here now is just the very, very beginnings of this. I think Bill rightly pointed out that there's a chance come November. Inflation may not be an issue for Democrats, and certainly they now have an issue to talk about other than inflation, immigration, and just about anything else. This is what they will be using to motivate their voters. We'll be right back.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.